Right now, your mind may feel like a loom that cannot stop turning, even though the thread has run out. Perhaps you are sitting in the dark, watching the patterns of your day unravel, feeling a sharp, quiet ache, because you believe that if you ever stop weaving, the fabric of your life will simply disappear into the floor. You might feel the weight of 100 undone tasks pressing against your chest. Or maybe you are exhausted by the rhythm of trying to prove that you are substantial, that you have created something solid, enough to hold. The air in your room is cool and still, and perhaps you can hear the faint, muffled hum of the world outside, a sound that reminds you how small your worries are, even though they feel like mountains. In the quiet of this space, your blankets are heavy and soft, and the shadows in the corner are long, offering a place for your thoughts to rest their tired heads if you allow them to. There is a sense of urgency in your chest, a quiet, insistent ticking that tells you to keep working, to keep fixing, to keep weaving, as if pausing for even one moment would mean losing your place in the world. You are not broken, and the exhaustion you carry is not a failure of your character. It is simply the weight of holding onto a thread that was never meant to be pulled so tightly. What you are experiencing right now is the fatigue of the weaver who fears the wind. But tonight, we will not try to force the loom to stop. We will not try to hold the mist together by sheer force of will, because that is not the way to find rest. We will learn how to let the threads drift, and we will discover the peace that lives in the space where nothing is being built. The mind does not become quiet because you force it to be empty. It becomes quiet when you stop treating every passing thought as a command to weave a new tapestry. Maybe you came here because you feel like you are fading, like you are a ghost in your own home, constantly trying to catch the vapor of your life and turn it into something permanent. You have worked so hard to keep the shape of your days, to keep the edges sharp and the design clear. But the more you try to solidify the mist, the more it slips through your fingers. This is the paradox that exhausts the heart. You think that being productive, or being perfect, or being in control is the same thing as being safe. But that is a heavy burden to carry into the night. Your worth is not found in the tapestry you have managed to pull together. Your worth is found in the vast open valley where the mist rises and falls with the morning. Take a slow breath and let it go with a long, soft exhale. You do not need to be the person who holds everything together tonight. You do not need to be the anchor for a world that is already turning on its own. Notice the way your shoulders want to drop, how the muscles in your jaw might finally decide to let go. If you simply grant them permission, there is no requirement for you to be anything other than a presence in this room. You are safe enough to soften, and you are allowed to stop pulling at the threads of your memory or your plans for tomorrow. Imagine you are standing in a small, quiet hut on the edge of a great cliff. Outside, the valley is filled with a thick, silver mist that moves in waves, changing its form with every passing breeze. You have spent your whole life standing at a loom made of old, dried cedar branches, trying to catch the vapor and weave it into something that will last, something that will show the world you were here, that you were busy, that you were real. But every time the sun shifts or the temperature changes, the mist changes too, and the pattern you worked so hard to create loses its shape. It is an exhausting cycle, and tonight, I want you to feel the relief of realizing that you can step away from the loom. You do not have to hold the pattern together anymore. The mist will keep moving, and the world will keep turning. but you can finally sit down. You can let the heavy shuttle of your attention come to a rest. There is no one waiting for you to finish this work, and there is no deadline for your existence. The valley is vast enough to hold you, and the silence is patient enough to wait for you, as long as it takes. You have been a guardian of the vapor for a long time, and your hands are tired. It is time to let your hands rest in your lap. Do not worry about what will happen if you stop. The sky does not fall when the weaver steps away, and your life will not lose its meaning simply because you stop trying to justify it. You are part of the vastness, not the separate struggle to contain it. Feel the weight of your body pressing into the bed, the reality of the mattress and the sheets. These things are solid. They do not need your help to exist. You are here in the quiet, and that is enough. You do not have to solve the problem of your identity or your future tonight. You only have to breathe. If you feel a thought coming, that familiar urge to start weaving again, just watch it for a moment. See it for what it is. A thin strand of fog. It has no substance, and it has no power unless you reach out and grab it. You can let it drift past. You can watch it move into the valley and vanish, and you will remain exactly as you are, whole and unhurt. Nothing is being lost by letting go. In fact, everything is being returned to its proper place. Let the room deepen around you. Let the air settle on your skin. You are finding your way to the center of the quiet, and you are doing it with such grace, simply by deciding that, for now, you can stop trying to hold the world together. In a valley hidden deep beneath the high, snow-dusted peaks, there lived a woman named Emmy, who was known as the finest weaver in the region. Her hut stood on the edge of a cliff, overlooking a great basin that was almost always filled with a thick, swirling mist. People traveled from distant villages just to see the tapestries she created, for they were said to possess colors that shimmered like dawn on the water, but no one saw the toll it took on her. Emmy believed that the mist was a wild, unruly thing, and it was her responsibility to tame it. She possessed a large, intricate loom carved from seasoned cedar that smelled faintly of dry earth and pine. Beside it, she kept a shuttle carved from a single piece of river-polished bone, smooth and cool to the touch. Every morning, long before the sun touched the valley floor, she would sit at her loom with a focused, desperate intensity. She would reach into the air, trying to catch the drifting vapor, threading it through the warp of her loom, pulling it taut, tying it down, trying to weave the formless mist into a solid, lasting robe. The work was never finished. As soon as the sun climbed high enough to warm the air, the mist would naturally rise and thin. The threads she had woven would grow faint, then translucent, and finally they would evaporate into nothingness. Emmy would watch her days, effort dissolve, a cold knot of anxiety tightening in her stomach. She felt that if she just worked faster, if she just pulled the threads tighter, she could hold the shape of her work against the heat of the day. She was terrified that if she stopped weaving, she would have nothing to show for her existence. She believed that her worth was measured by the density of the cloth she could produce, and every sunset brought a crushing sense of failure. Her hands were always cold, her shoulders hunched against an invisible burden, and her mind was a whirlwind of calculations about how to improve her technique for the next day. One autumn morning, the air was unusually crisp and still. A traveller arrived at her hut. He was an elderly man, dressed in a simple faded robe of indigo linen that looked as if it had been washed 1,000 times. He did not introduce himself, nor did he ask for a place to stay. He simply walked to the edge of the cliff and sat on a flat, weathered rock, watching the sea of fog below. Emmy was busy at her loom, the wooden frame rattling with the frantic speed of her hands. She paid him no mind, for she was in the middle of a delicate attempt to catch a particularly dense plume of vapor. But the man did not look away. He sat in total, unbroken silence for hours. The only sound was the sharp, rhythmic clacking of the loom and the soft whistle of the wind through the cliffside pines. When the sun finally reached its peak and the mist had mostly vanished, Emmy sat back, her chest heaving with exhaustion. She looked at her loom, where only a few faint, wispy threads remained, clinging to the cedar wood. She felt the familiar weight of defeat settle in her bones. The traveller turned his head slowly. He looked at the loom, then at Emmy, and finally at her hands, which were still trembling from the tension of the grip she had held. He did not smile, but his eyes were kind, holding a depth that felt like the quiet center of a storm. He reached into his satchel and pulled out a small, unglazed ceramic cup. It was rough, uneven, and had a small chip on the rim, but it felt warm in his hand. He set it down on the narrow wooden bench between them. He did not speak, but he gestured for Emmy to follow his lead. He took a single slow breath, closing his eyes for a moment. Then he began to move his fingers, not in the frantic, grabbing motion Emmy used to catch the mist, but in a slow, circular dance. He mimicked the way the mist rose, the way it twisted in the wind, the way it settled against the grass. Emmy watched, puzzled. She felt a strange tension in her neck, a resistance to his slowness. Why was he moving like that? Was he trying to catch it? Or was he mocking her labor? She felt a flash of irritation, a sudden surge of protective pride over her work. But then she saw his face. There was no mockery there. There was only a profound, grounded stillness. He looked at her and asked a single quiet question. If you try to hold the wind in your hands, does it become stronger, or do you only tire yourself out? Emmy opened her mouth to argue, to explain that she was not holding the wind, but the mist, and that she was doing something important, something that defined her. But the words died in her throat. She looked at her own hands, still curled into claws from the morning's work. She looked at the cedar loom, which felt more like a cage than a tool. The traveller reached out and touched the frame of the loom, very lightly, as if acknowledging its presence. He did not tell her to stop. He did not tell her she was wrong. He simply picked up the cup he had placed between them. It was filled with nothing but the clear, cool air of the morning. He tipped it toward her, then set it back down. The silence that followed was different from the silence Emmy had known before. Her own silence had been a strained, watchful thing, a wall she built to keep the world out so she could focus on her weaving. The traveller's silence was open. It was a space where things could simply be what they were. She felt a sudden, sharp ache in her heart, a recognition of how lonely her life had become, in the pursuit of something that could not be held. The fear that had been the engine of her day suddenly felt like a heavy, unnecessary coat she was wearing in the heat. She wanted to ask him how he found such stillness, how he lived, without the need to show something for his time. But she knew the question would only be another thread to weave. She looked out over the valley. The sun was hot now, and the mist was entirely gone. The valley floor was revealed, green and deep and quiet. It was a landscape that did not need her to name it, or to weave it, or to make it permanent. It was beautiful, precisely because it was there, and it was alive, and it was entirely indifferent to her efforts. For the first time in years, she did not look for a way to capture it. She let her hands fall open. She let them lie flat against the rough, worn wood of her apron. The traveller stood up, bowed to her with a gentle inclination of his head, and began to walk down the narrow, winding path that led away from the cliff. He did not look back. He left the cup on the bench. Emmy stared at the empty cup. For a long time, the sunlight warming her skin, the sound of the wind no longer a threat but a song. She did not know what to do next, and for the first time, the lack of a plan did not feel like an emergency. It felt like a doorway. What Emmy felt at that loom, the frantic urge to capture the mist and bind it to the cedar frame, is a feeling many of us carry in our own hearts. It is the quiet, nagging belief that we must prove our substance, that if we do not weave a masterpiece of productivity or personality every single day, we might simply evaporate. This is the struggle of the weaver who forgets they are part of the sky. We look at our own lives, at the shifting, uncertain nature of our days, and we become afraid. We think that by grabbing hold of the threads, by obsessing over the pattern, by worrying about how others see the design, we can make our existence solid, permanent, and safe. But life, like the morning mist, is not designed to be held in a closed fist. When Emmy tried to weave the vapor, she was not just working, she was fighting. She was turning the natural process of change into a personal battle. This is the first layer of the exhaustion you feel tonight. The world naturally changes, shifting through seasons of fog and clarity, of growth and rest. But the mind often decides that this change is a threat. We add a second layer of struggle, a second wound, by insisting that the mist should stay still for us. We add the tension of judgment to the reality of the situation. It is not that you have failed because you feel tired, or because your life feels unfinished. The fatigue comes from the act of trying to force a shape onto the vapor. The teacher who sat by the cliffside did not ask Emmy to stop being a weaver. He did not tell her to burn the loom or abandon the craft. He only pointed to the cup, a small, imperfect object that held the clear air of the morning. That cup was not trying to hold the mist. It was merely open, waiting, and allowing the world to fill it with whatever was currently present. The Buddhist path is not about becoming cold or indifferent to the things we love. It is about understanding that our hands are meant to cradle, not to crush. When you treat every passing thought as a command to build something permanent, you are acting like a weaver who forgets the sun will rise. You are spending your energy on a struggle that cannot be won, not because you are weak, but because you are playing against the nature of the valley itself. Perhaps you have been holding your own life with that same tight grip. You believe that if you relax, if you stop the constant mental weaving of your worries and plans, you will disappear. You think that being present means being busy, or that being worthy means being solid and unchanging. But what if the peace you are looking for is found in the very thing you are trying to avoid? What if the feeling of being lost or unproductive is actually just the moment the mist begins to clear? The Buddhist insight here is that we are not the weaver of the fog. We are the valley. We are the vast, spacious awareness in which the mist rises, dances, and eventually settles into the earth. This does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop turning your care into a prison. The suffering that keeps you awake tonight is not in the events of your life, but in the way your mind has been trying to hold those events together, like a tapestry made of smoke. You have been trying to make the smoke solid, and the effort has left you drained. Notice how your breath becomes shorter when you try to grasp at the future, or how your shoulders climb toward your ears when you try to fix the past. These are the physical signs of the weaver who is afraid of the morning sun. We often imagine that if we could just find the right answer, the right strategy, or the right amount of effort, the mist would solidify. We think there is a secret way to weave the vapor so that it stays. But the wisdom of the teacher is the invitation to trust the emptiness. The emptiness is not a void where you are lost. It is a space where you are finally free from the need to construct a permanent self. You do not need to be a grand design. You do not need to be a finished tapestry. You are already a part of the whole, and you have been all along. The teacher's question about whether holding the wind makes it stronger is a reflection of how we use our mental energy. When we obsess, when we turn over the same worries, when we judge our progress, we are not fixing the problem. We are only squeezing the wind. We are only exhausting our own hearts. The goal of this journey is not to become a perfect, unmoving statue. It is to learn how to rest in the middle of the shifting, changing, beautiful flow of your own life. There is a profound comfort in realizing that you are allowed to be unfinished. You are allowed to be in transition. The morning mist is not a flaw in the valley. It is a vital part of its cycle. Your current feeling of vulnerability is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. It is a sign that you are moving closer to the truth of your own nature. You do not have to hold it all together. The valley holds you, even when the mist is thin. The ground is beneath you, even when you feel like you are drifting. As we move toward the next part of our journey, let these words settle into the space between your thoughts. Do not analyze them. Do not try to weave them into a new philosophy. Just let them drift through the valley of your mind. Like the morning vapor, you are finding a different way to listen. You are finding a different way to be. The struggle is beginning to loosen its grip, not because you forced it to, but because you are finally seeing the loom for what it is. You are standing on the cliffside. The air is cool, and for this moment, you are simply a witness to the beauty of the morning. You are not the weaver. You are the space where the weaver, the loom, and the mist all meet. And in that space, there is a deep, quiet room for you to rest. Now, let us bring this insight into the quiet space of your own heart. You do not need to change your posture, and there is no right or wrong way to be here. Simply find a position where your body feels supported, where you can let the weight of your day begin to sink away from your muscles. If it feels right, let your eyes close or simply soften your gaze toward the dim shadows in the room. Take a slow, gentle breath, not because you are trying to calm down, but because you are acknowledging that you are finally here, in the present moment, where nothing is required of you. Feel the air as it moves into your lungs, and notice the slight, natural rise of your chest. This is the valley of your own being, and there is space here for whatever you are carrying. Perhaps you can bring to mind a thought that has been pulling at your attention, a worry or a task that feels like it must be woven immediately. Do not try to push it away. Do not judge yourself for having it. Just allow it to surface in your awareness like a thin plume of mist rising from the valley floor. If you find your mind trying to grab it, trying to weave it into a pattern of concern, just notice that movement. You can name it to yourself quietly, calling it by its name. This is a plan. This is a fear. This is a memory. Once you have seen it, you can imagine that you are holding a single silver thread of it in your hand. Imagine the loom from the story, the one made of cedar and the shuttle carved from bone. Instead of weaving with this thread, instead of trying to make it part of a permanent design, simply open your hand. Imagine laying that thread down on the wooden bench beside the ceramic cup. You are not discarding it. You are not throwing it away. You are simply choosing to stop holding it for a few moments. You are placing it outside of your own grip, giving it permission to exist without your active supervision. Notice how it feels in your palm to have nothing to grasp. Notice the sensation of your fingers resting, completely empty, completely free from the burden of the thread. If another thought arises, another piece of the mist that wants to be caught and managed, watch it with the same gentle curiosity. You do not have to follow it. You do not have to see where it leads. You are not a weaver tonight. You are the space where the threads appear, and you are the space where they dissolve. There is a deep, quiet safety in this realization. You are not losing yourself by letting go of the thread. You are becoming more of who you truly are, a presence that is large enough to contain the mist without being controlled by it. If your mind becomes busy, if the urge to fix or to plan returns, do not worry. This is not a sign that you have failed. It is simply the habit of the mind, a pattern of thinking that has been practiced for a long time. Just notice the urge, like a bird flying across the sky. You do not have to catch the bird. You do not have to convince it to land. You can just watch it move through the vastness, and then return your attention to the feeling of your breath. Return your attention to the sensation of your body resting against the bed, the steady, reliable support of the earth beneath you. There is no deadline for this practice. You can do this for as long as you like, or you can simply rest in the silence if that feels more natural. Every time you notice yourself trying to hold the mist, you have already succeeded in the practice. The act of noticing is the moment the grip loosens. The act of noticing is the moment you step away from the loom. You are practicing the art of being, which is much deeper and much more restorative than the art of doing. Perhaps you can imagine the cup again, the small, unglazed vessel that held only the morning air. Imagine that your mind is that cup. It does not need to be full to be valuable. It does not need to contain a grand design to be worthy. It is perfectly fine as it is, simple and open. You can let the thoughts drift through your mind like the light mist in the morning. Some thoughts might be heavy, others light, but none of them are yours to hold forever. None of them are the solid ground of your own existence. If you feel a sense of unease, if your heart feels a little heavy, offer yourself the same kindness you would offer a tired traveler. You have been walking a long way, and your hands have been busy for a long time. It is all right to set the load down. It is all right to admit that you are tired. You do not need to justify your rest. You do not need to earn your peace through productivity. Your peace is your natural state, and it is waiting for you beneath the layers of effort. Take another breath, and this time, try to breathe into the spaces between your thoughts. Imagine the breath moving through your chest, through your shoulders, down into your hands. Let your hands remain soft. Let them lie flat, open, and at rest. You are not weaving anything tonight. You are simply breathing, and you are simply being. There is a great, gentle stillness in the valley of your own life, and you are finally beginning to see it. Everything that needs to be done can wait until the morning. Everything that needs to be known will reveal itself in its own time. For now, you are safe, and you are held, and you are free to stop working. The mist is doing exactly what it was meant to do, and you are doing exactly what you were meant to do. You are resting, you are opening, You are becoming the valley, and in this valley, the night is deep, and the air is clear, and you are entirely at home. Years later, when the memory of the cliffside hut felt like a half-remembered dream, Emmy had moved to a village, nestled in a narrow mountain pass where the wind was constant and fierce. She was no longer a master weaver sought by emperors. She worked in a small communal garden, tending to the hardy, wind-battered shrubs that grew between the stones. She lived in a room with a single window, and her life was marked by the simple, repetitive cycles of the seasons. Yet, the old habit still whispered to her at night, whenever the wind roared through the pass, rattling the wooden shutters of her home. Her mind would start to spin. She would begin to calculate how to brace the garden against the storm, how to tie the branches of the trees so they would not break, and how to protect the soil from being washed away. She felt that same familiar tightness in her chest, the phantom urge to weave the elements into a structure that would make her feel safe. One evening, a young man came to the village. He was an apprentice bridge builder, and he was deeply distressed. He had been tasked with constructing a span across a deep, jagged gorge, where the river below was nothing more than a roaring ghost of white water. He had been given a bundle of spider webs, as was the custom for his master's peculiar training, and he was tasked with weaving them into a bridge that could support his own weight. He had spent weeks in the gorge, his hands bleeding and his eyes red from exhaustion. He tried to knot the delicate strands, but the wind tore them apart. He tried to shield them with his own body, but they snapped under the tension of his grip. He was convinced that if he could not build the bridge, he was a failure as a builder, and he would never be allowed to return home. He looked like a man standing on the edge of his own undoing. Emmy watched him from the garden. She saw the familiar, desperate energy in his shoulders, the way he looked at the sky, as if it were an enemy that needed to be defeated. She saw the way he gripped his bundle of webs, as if they were made of iron. She invited him to her garden, offering him a bowl of simple, warm barley broth. He sat on the ground, his knuckles white, his breath coming in, jagged, uneven gasps. He told her about the gorge, about the impossible task, about the fear that gnawed at him. He said that he was trying to weave the webs into something as firm as a stone path, because that was the only way to reach the other side. He told her he had to succeed, or his life would have no meaning. Emmy listened to his words, but she also listened to the sound of the wind. It was howling through the pass, swaying the trees, shaking the very walls of her house. She stood up and walked to the door, gesturing for him to follow. She led him to the edge of the pass, where a bridge made of woven reeds and thick rope stretched across a smaller chasm. It was an ancient structure, swaying and groaning with every gust of wind. It did not look strong. It did not look permanent. The young man drew back, afraid. He told her it was dangerous, that it was not built to be solid, and that it would surely break. Emmy looked at the bridge, then at the young man. She stepped onto the wooden planks, her movements light and fluid. She walked to the middle of the span, where the movement was greatest, and she stood there letting the bridge sway beneath her. She did not grab the ropes. She did not try to force the bridge to stand still. She simply leaned into the motion, moving with the arc of the wind, her weight balanced perfectly in the center of the instability. She looked back at the young man and beckoned him to come forward. He hesitated, his heart hammering against his ribs, but something in her calmness pulled him toward her. He stepped onto the bridge. His feet were tense, his body rigid as stone. Every time the bridge dipped, he would gasp and try to freeze his muscles, hoping to counteract the movement. Emmy waited until he reached her. She reached out and touched his hand, not to pull him, but to steady his focus. She told him to stop trying to make the bridge a floor. She told him to walk, as if the bridge were a part of the wind. She told him that the strength of the bridge was not in its rigidity, but in its capacity to sway. She said that if he tried to make it solid, he would only increase the pressure until it snapped. But if he allowed it to move, he would find that it was strong enough to support him. He looked at her, and then he looked down at the chasm. He saw the way the bridge responded to the breeze, not by fighting, but by dancing. He took a breath, and he consciously let go of the iron-like grip he had on his bundle of webs. He let his shoulders drop. He let his knees bend, just enough to absorb the rhythm of the crossing. As he walked, he felt the change. The bridge was not a static object. It was a rhythmic partner. He realized that his struggle was not with the bridge, but with his own demand. That it be something it was not. He reached the other side, and when he stepped onto the solid ground, he felt a strange, quiet shiver of realization. He turned back to look at the reeds and the ropes vibrating in the mountain air. He did not ask how to fix them. He did not ask how to make them stronger. He simply sat down on the grass, his hands open, the bundle of webs resting at his feet. He was not a different man. He still had the gorge to cross, and he still had the task before him. But the look in his eyes had softened. He had seen that the bridge could hold him, precisely because it was willing to move. He understood that he did not have to conquer the wind. He only had to find his rhythm. Within it, he bowed to Emmy, not as a student to a master, but as one traveler to another. He picked up his bundle, and he walked back toward the gorge. He did not walk with the frantic haste of the morning. He walked with a steady, measured pace, his body light, his breath deep. Emmy stood on the edge of the pass. Time after he had left, she felt the wind against her face, cold and biting. But she did not retreat inside to shut the door. She did not try to weave the wind into a wall. She simply stood there, feeling the coolness of the air, noticing the way her own heart with the rhythm heartbeat in harmony. She realized that she did not have to weave a life of permanent safety. She had only to walk across the bridge of her own present moment, allowing it to sway, allowing it to move, allowing it to be exactly what it was. The garden was still there. The winter was coming, and her hands were still worn from her work. But the ache in her chest had vanished. She was not a weaver of mist anymore. She was a woman standing in the mountain pass, and the pass was vast, and the silence was deep, and that was enough. She walked back into her room, lit a small, simple lamp, and began to prepare for the night, her movements slow, unhurried, and full of grace. The reason you have felt so tired for so long is not because you are failing to manage your life, but because you have been using all your internal resources to fight the nature of reality itself. You have been treating your life like a delicate, crumbling tapestry of mist, and you have assumed that if you ever stop weaving, the world will end. This is a common and painful mistake. It is the belief that safety comes from solidity, and that if we can just control every thread, predict every shift in the weather, and weave a pattern that pleases everyone else, we will finally be allowed to stop and rest. But this is like trying to catch the mountain mist in a net of iron. The harder you pull the net, the more exhausted you become, and the mist continues to move exactly as it always has. This is where the mind begins to add a second layer of struggle to the original difficulties of life. Life will always bring changes. It brings moments of clarity and moments of confusion. It brings periods of growth and periods of dormancy. This is the first kind of pain, the unavoidable rhythm of existence. It is the wind that moves through the mountain pass, and it is the fog that settles in the valley. You cannot control the wind, and you cannot demand that the fog stay still. But the mind often makes the mistake of deciding that these natural changes are personal threats. When the mist rises, the mind interprets it as a failure of your work. When the wind picks up, the mind interprets it as a sign that you are not safe. This is the second wound. It is the suffering you add to the situation through your resistance. It is the way you tell yourself that you should be different, that you should be more productive, or that you should have prevented the change. You begin to rehearse the future, imagining all the ways the mist might disappear or the bridge might break, and you spend your precious energy building defenses against threats that only exist in your thoughts. You replay the past, analyzing where you could have woven a tighter knot, or why you did not catch the thread in time, and you use those memories to punish the person you are today. You seek approval from others because you have forgotten how to trust the valley itself, and you turn your pain into an identity, believing that because you are a weaver of mist, you must always be anxious, always busy, and always fighting. This is not a failure of your spirit. It is a misunderstanding of your role. You have confused yourself with the weaver, but in truth, you are the valley. You are the space that holds the mist, the mountain, the wind, and the change. When you realize this, the need for control begins to dissolve. Control is an attempt to make the mist stay still, but peace is the realization that the mist never needed to stay still to be beautiful. The mountain pass does not try to stop the wind. It allows the wind to pass through it, and because it does not resist, it remains standing, firm and steady, long after the storm has faded. When you judge yourself for being tired, you are merely adding a layer of shame to the sensation of fatigue. When you fear that your life is unraveled, you are only adding a layer of panic to the sensation of change. What would happen if you simply let the feeling of tiredness be exactly what it is? What if you allowed the sensation of being unfinished to sit in the room with you, without labeling it as a catastrophe? You are not required to fix your identity tonight. You are not required to build a permanent structure out of your thoughts. You are only required to be present and to recognize that the space inside you is far more vast and stable than any pattern you have ever woven. Consider the bridge builder from the second story. He thought that by forcing the webs into a solid shape, he would earn his way home. He was terrified of the instability of the gorge, but his transformation did not come when he finally conquered the wind. It came when he realized the bridge was meant to sway. He stopped fighting the motion of the bridge, and in that moment, the gorge ceased to be a place of terror and became a place of passage. Your life is that bridge. The challenges you face, the moments of uncertainty, the times when you feel you are not enough. These are simply the swaying of the bridge. They are not signs that you are falling. They are signs that you are participating in the rhythm of existence. You do not have to become magically perfect or suddenly fearless to experience this peace. You only need to stop adding the second layer of judgment to your life. When you feel a wave of anxiety, notice it, but do not turn it into a story about your worth. When you feel a desire to control an outcome, acknowledge the desire, but do not act on it as if it were a command. When you feel the weight of the past pressing on your chest, take a breath and feel the solid ground beneath you. Here, in the present, where the past has no power. This is the practice of resting in the valley. It is the practice of being the mountain pass. It is the practice of letting the mist move, letting the wind blow, and recognizing that you, in your deepest nature, are already the vastness that allows it all to happen. There is a profound, quiet strength in choosing to stop. It takes more courage to sit still in the middle of a storm than it does to run around trying to fix the clouds. It takes a deeper kind of wisdom to accept the swaying of the bridge than it does to try to nail it to the cliffside. You have been running for so long, dear friend. You have been trying to weave a robe of protection out of your own worry. But tonight, the loom is quiet. You can set the shuttle down. You can let the threads fall where they may. You do not need to prove your existence to anyone, not even to yourself. You are here. You are alive. You are a part of the whole, and the whole is moving exactly as it should. Let the thoughts of tomorrow drift away like vapor. Let the memories of yesterday settle like dew on the grass. You are safe in this silence. You are safe in this space. You are already exactly where you need to be, resting in the center of your own vast heart. This wisdom does not belong only to cliffside, huts, or mountain passes. It belongs to the Tuesday morning when you are checking your phone for a message that does not arrive, feeling that familiar tug of anxiety, that sudden belief that your worth is tied to whether someone else thinks of you. It belongs to the moments when you are lying in bed, replaying a conversation from 3 years ago, trying to rewrite the words so that they sound sharper, smarter, or kinder. It belongs to the long afternoons when you are smiling at colleagues or friends, performing the role of the capable, steady person, while inside you feel like a frayed rope holding on to the edge of a cliff. In these moments, you are essentially standing at your loom again, trying to weave a sense of safety out of the vapor of other people's opinions or the ghost of your own mistakes. When you feel the urge to check your screen for the 10th time, hoping for a sign that you are seen or valued, pause for a single breath. Notice that desire, that craving for a solid result, and observe it like a plume of mist. You do not have to stop the feeling. You do not have to judge yourself for wanting connection. You only have to recognize that this craving is a thread of vapor. If you reach out to grab it, you will only tire your hand. If you let it drift, you remain the mountain pass, vast and stable, regardless of whether the message appears. You are not the weaver of the connection. You are the space where the desire arrives and eventually settles. When you are lying awake, polishing the past like a stone in a river, ask yourself what you are really trying to save. Are you trying to prove that you were not hurt? Are you trying to convince yourself that you could have prevented the rain? You are attempting to fix the past, but the past is a finished tapestry. No amount of mental weaving can change the way the mist moved yesterday. The suffering comes when you turn your attention away from the present moment to fight a battle that has already ended. Give yourself permission to set that stone down. You do not need to rewrite your history to be worthy of rest tonight. You are allowed to be someone who has made mistakes, someone who has stumbled, and someone who is still learning how to walk across the swaying bridge of the present. Perhaps you feel behind in life compared to others, as if everyone else is weaving a robe of gold while you are still clutching at the fog. This is a story the mind tells to keep you running. It is a measurement that ignores the reality of the valley. There is no race here. There is no emperor. waiting for your robe. You are not behind, and you are not ahead. You are simply living through a cycle of your own, and the dormancy of winter is just as sacred as the blooming of spring. If you feel the shame of not being enough, notice how that shame feels in your body. It is a tightness, a coldness. It is the feeling of trying to hold the mist against your skin. You can let that tightness go. You can trust that the valley knows how to nurture you, even when you feel you have nothing to show for your days. Even in your acts of service, in the ways you care for others, you can learn to move differently. You can care deeply without gripping tightly. You can offer your support, your time, and your love without needing to weave those actions into a permanent identity. You do not need to be the person who holds everyone else together. You do not need to be the anchor for their storms. When you try to be the anchor, you lose the ability to move with the bridge. You become brittle and you become prone to breaking. Instead, offer your care like the mountain pass offers shelter to the trees. You are a presence, a support, and a steady hand. But you are not the savior of the world. You are not responsible for the weather. You can also learn to rest without feeling the need to earn it. The guilt that arises when you sit down, that little voice saying you should be doing more, is just another habit of the weaver. It is the fear that if you are not weaving, you are disappearing. But notice what happens when you finally stop. The world does not end. The mountain pass does not crumble. You are still there in the quiet, breathing and being. You are beginning to see that your worth is not a product of your labor. It is a quality of your existence. You are part of the vastness, and the vastness does not work for its right to exist. The valley does not apologize for its emptiness. It simply is, and in that simplicity, it is complete. Practice this in small, ordinary ways. A pause before you answer. A difficult question is a practice. Taking a single, conscious breath before you react to a frustration is a practice. Choosing not to follow a dark or judging thought to its end is a practice. You are learning to walk across the swaying bridge, letting it move, letting it breathe, and trusting that it is strong enough to carry you, as long as you do not fight its nature. You are learning that you can be disciplined in your kindness, steady in your awareness, and gentle with your own heart, all without needing to build a wall around your soul. You are allowed to be unfinished. You are allowed to be in the middle of your own unfolding. You are allowed to be tired, and tonight you are allowed to stop weaving. The loom is silent. The cedar frame is resting. The air in your room is cooling, and the shadows are deepening into a soft, protective blanket. You do not have to solve the riddle of your life before you close your eyes. You do not have to finish the tapestry. The mist will continue to rise and fall, and the sun will rise again tomorrow. But for this long, beautiful stretch of night, you are not the weaver. You are the quiet, stable space of the valley itself. And the valley is deep, and the valley is wide, and there is nowhere else you need to go. The loom is silent now. The cedar frame stands in the corner of the room, dark and still, no longer demanding your attention or your labor. The shuttle has been laid aside, resting on the bench like a bird that has finally folded its wings. You do not need to check the tightness of the threads tonight. You do not need to look for patterns in the shadows or try to weave the dark corners of the room into something that makes sense. The mist has settled. The valley is quiet, and you are the valley. Feel the heavy, welcoming pull of the bed beneath you. Notice how your body, which has worked so hard to keep its shape against the demands of the day, is finally giving in to the gravity of the earth. Your toes are heavy, Your ankles are resting. Your knees are yielding to the weight of the air. There is nothing to hold on to, and there is no reason to resist the drift into the dark. You are safe enough to let the world carry you. You are held by the same quiet forces that move the mist through the mountains and turn the seasons in the pass. If a stray thought arrives, do not try to weave it into a story. Let it be like a faint, silver whisper vapor drifting over the cliffside, visible for a heartbeat and then gone, leaving no trace in the vast, empty air. You do not have to be the guardian of these thoughts. You do not have to be the interpreter of your own mind. You are the space where they arise and where they vanish, and the space itself is never harmed by what passes through it. You are the stillness that waits even when the wind is loud. You are the mountain pass that remembers how to stand, even when the storms come and go. Let your breathing become slow, natural, and rhythmic, like the steady pulse of the tides against the shore. You are not trying to change your breath. You are only noticing it, watching it move in and out of your chest, a soft, invisible bridge between the world of waking and the world of dream. Every exhale is a surrender. Every inhale is a return to the simplicity of being here, right now, in the middle of this deep, sheltering night. You have done enough for today. You have carried enough for today. The unfinished tasks can remain exactly where they are, waiting for the morning light. But for these hours, they are not your burden to bear. Think of the cup from the first story, the one with the chip on its rim, sitting on the wooden bench. It is empty of everything but the coolness of the air. Your mind is like that cup tonight. It does not need to be full. It does not need to be busy. It does not need to hold the weight of your history or the pressure of your future. It is enough to be open. It is enough to be simple. It is enough. In the quiet, unburdened by the need to be anything other than what you are a presence, a breath, a heartbeat, a life that is unfolding in its own perfect, unhurried time. There is no place you must reach before you fall asleep. There is no truth you must capture in your dreams to prove you have understood the lesson. The lesson is not a thing to be learned or a thread to be woven. The lesson is the peace that settles in your heart when you finally decide that you can stop holding the world together. The mist will do its work without your help. The sun will rise without your permission. The valley will remain, and you will remain, a part of the vast, breathing beauty that requires nothing from you but your presence. As the silence deepens, let go of the last remnants of the day. Let go of the need to be understood. Let go of the need to be right. Let go of the need to be finished. The darkness is a soft velvet curtain, closing over the landscape of your mind, protecting you, cradling you, inviting you into the deeper stillness that lies beneath the surface of your thoughts. There is a deep, profound trust in your ability to be here, in this moment, and to let everything else fade away. You are descending into the valley, where the air is still and the dew is gathering on the leaves, where the only thing that remains is the soft, rhythmic sound of your own life, moving through the quiet dark. If you find yourself drifting, do not worry. You are exactly where you need to be. You are falling into the embrace of the whole, the vast, open existence that was here before you began your weaving and will be here long after the loom has been put away. There is no edge to this peace. There is no end to this rest. You are sinking into the deep, cool reservoir of your own being, a place where the weaver and the mist become one, where the bridge and the gorge become one, where you and the universe become one. Sleep is not a destination. It is the natural return of the spirit, to the source. It is the moment when the hands finally open and the threads finally fall and the heart finally knows it is safe to be still. Let the weight of your body dissolve into the sheets. Let the light of the mind dissolve into the stars. Let the struggle of the day dissolve into the velvet dark. You are finished with the work of holding on. You are finally ready for the grace of letting go. In the quiet that remains, listen to the stillness. It is not an empty absence of sound. It is a full, vibrant, living presence that surrounds you, cradles you, and breathes with you. You are part of the vastness, and the vastness is part of you, and there is nothing to fear in this surrender. You are drifting. You are deepening. You are arriving. What if the peace you have been chasing across the mountains was only waiting for you to realize that you never had to leave your own heart to find it? You are already home, even if the mind tries to tell you that you are still lost. Even if you feel like a traveler who has walked in circles for years, searching for a gate that was never actually locked. The struggle to arrive, the desire to be different, the hunger to finally feel that you have done enough. These are simply the restless movements of the weaver who has forgotten. They are also the sky. And tonight, you are given the profound gift of letting that struggle fall away. You do not need to build anything else. You do not need to add another thread to the tapestry of your life. The fabric you have already woven, with all its loose ends and frayed edges, is enough. It is part of the valley. It is part of the morning. It is part of the silence that holds you now. Think of the mountain pass again, not as a place you must conquer or cross, but as the very texture of your own experience. The wind blows through it, sometimes fiercely, sometimes gently, and the pass does not ask the wind to be less cold. It does not ask the storm to apologize for its presence. It simply stands, open and unmoving, allowing the world to pass through it without claiming any of it as its own. You have the same capacity inside you. You are that vast open space. When a difficult feeling arises, perhaps a memory of something left undone, or a fear of what the next day will hold, you do not need to turn it into a wall. You do not need to turn it into a cage. You can let it be a gust of wind. You can let it be a passing cloud. You can notice it, acknowledge its presence, and then return your attention to the feeling of your own breath, to the sensation of your body resting in the dark, to the simple, undeniable fact that you are here. This is the great secret of the teacher, the one he whispered without ever needing to speak a word. He showed that the bridge was strong, not because it was made of iron, but because it knew how to yield. When you feel yourself becoming rigid, when you feel the old habits of control tightening their grip on your thoughts, remember that bridge. Remember the way it moved with the wind instead of against it. You can be like that bridge in your own life. You can be firm in your intention to be kind, yet flexible in your relationship with the outcome. You can be committed to your life, yet unattached to the desperate need for it to be perfect. When the unexpected happens, when life takes a turn you did not plan, you do not have to break. You do not have to fall. You only have to find your rhythm within the sway. There is a quiet, steady power in choosing to stop fighting your own humanity. You have spent so long trying to be a finished product, a masterfully crafted robe that has no flaws and no loose threads. But the beauty of your life is not in its perfection. The beauty is in the process. The beauty is in the way you keep waking up, the way you keep trying to be present, the way you keep opening your heart, even after it has been bruised. That is the true tapestry. That is the real work, and it is a work that is already finished. You are complete exactly as you are, with all your beautiful human uncertainties. You are a work of art that is constantly in flux, and there is no reason to fear the changing of the seasons. The valley does not fear the autumn. It does not fear the winter. It knows that the cold is just a time for the earth to rest, to gather its strength, to prepare for the return of the light. And you are allowed the same cycle. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to be quiet. You are allowed to wait for your own renewal. Let the words I have shared tonight dissolve into the background, like the sound of a distant river that has been flowing through your life all along. You do not need to remember them. You do not need to hold on to them as if they were new threads to weave. They are already part of you. They are already woven into the fabric of your own wisdom. They will be there when you need them. Not as a set of rules to follow, but as a gentle reminder that you are already safe. You are already whole. You are already enough. Feel the depth of the night pressing against your skin, a cool, gentle weight that asks nothing of you. The world has slowed down. The fever of the day has broken. The urgency that kept you awake, that told you that if you did not solve everything, right now you would be lost, has lost its power. It was never true, of course. It was only the mind's way of trying to protect you from the unknown. But the unknown is not your enemy. The unknown is the very place where your life unfolds. And you have survived every step of the journey. So far, you have carried your heart through storms and across vast, empty plains, and you have arrived here in this quiet moment, in this safe space, where you can finally lay down your burden. If you find yourself waking up in the middle of the night, if the old thoughts come knocking, do not be afraid. Do not scold yourself for waking. Do not try to fight the thoughts. Simply acknowledge them as if they were a soft, familiar sound, like the rustling of leaves outside your window. Say to yourself, there is the thought again. And then, without any struggle, without any frustration, bring your attention back to your breath. Bring your attention back to the feeling of your body against the mattress. You are safe. You are in your bed. The world is turning without your help. The stars are in their silent, infinite orbits. The night is doing its work of healing, and all you have to do is let it. You are entering the deepest part of the rest, where the mind finally lets go of the reins and allows the body to drift into the quiet. There is no more thinking to be done. There are no more problems to solve. There is only the slow, rhythmic rising and falling of your own breath, a steady tide that is carrying you home. Imagine yourself as a leaf drifting on the surface of a deep, still pond. You do not have to swim. You do not have to struggle against the current. You are held by the water, and the water is held by the earth. And you are exactly where you are meant to be. The stillness in this room is not empty. It is a presence. It is the same silence that exists in the heart of a temple, the same silence that lives in the center of the mountain, the same silence that has always been your true home. It is a space where nothing is required, nothing is judged, and nothing is lacking. You can sink into this silence. You can let it wash over you, clearing away the last traces of the day's fatigue, the last remnants of the mind's anxious weaving. You are becoming lighter. You are becoming softer. You are becoming one with the peace that passeth all understanding. Everything that you have been holding on to, the roles you play, the masks you wear, the expectations you carry, the stories you tell yourself about who you are, is beginning to dissolve like salt in a deep, vast ocean. What remains is the essence of you, the quiet observer, the gentle presence that was here before the world began to talk and will be here long after the world has gone quiet. This essence is not threatened by change. It is not diminished by difficulty. It is not improved by success. It is simply, eternally, profoundly itself, and it is safe. As you drift into the dream, carry this one truth with you. You are not the weaver of the mist. You are the space that holds it. You are the valley. You are the pass. You are the mountain. And you are the vast, open, eternal sky. There is nothing to fear in the dark. For the dark is only the shadow of the light, and the light is always waiting to return. You are held by the earth. You are protected by the night, and you are loved by the very existence that breathed you into being. May the rest tonight be deep and healing. May the peace you touch tonight remain with you when you wake. May you be gentle with your own heart, and may you trust the unfolding of your life, even in the moments when the path is hidden. And if, in the quiet of your dream, you find yourself back at the loom, remember that you have the right to stand up, to leave the shuttle on the bench, and to walk out into the open air, because the robe you were trying to weave was already given to you, not in the shape of a design, but in the feeling of the wind on your face and the warmth of the sun on your skin, and the quiet, steady rhythm of your own living, breathing, perfect heart. Rest now, for the morning will come in its own time, and you will meet it, not as a weaver of struggles, but as a person who has finally learned how to be, how to breathe, and how to simply exist in the vast, beautiful, and completely sufficient space of the present. What if the peace you have been searching for across all the mountains was only waiting for you to realize that you never had to leave the center of your own heart to find it?